everyone. We're going to get started with the So My Newborn Isn't a Blob live. Let me just invite Mushka. Hey everyone. Okay. So there we go. Accept. All right. I'll try that again. I feel like every time I have a live, Instagram changes how to do it. Accept. It's not working. Hold on. Just try this one more time. Trying to get Mushka to join. Just bear with us. I see people joining. Hello, everybody. Good morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Hello. How are you?
Hi, Lauren. Hi. This is like my first joint live, I think. So this is fun. This is
I was pressing like accept.
I know.
Also, my phone's a little messed up, so I never know. Like, anyway, hello. I love your background, the rainbow. That's so cute.
It's our toy shelf. So those are our rainbows. Yeah.
That's very Montessori-ish of you.
Yeah.
I have that rainbow. That is something I bought, like basically during a middle of the night feed with my newborn in the beginning of COVID almost 2 years ago. And we have that rainbow. I bought it and it took weeks to come. I was like, oh, this is such a cute Montessori toy. I mean, it is, but I like totally, you know, that like phase where you're like scanning Instagram and then scrolling and they're like marketing these products at you. So
yeah,
that was me. Okay, so I'm so excited for this conversation. And I was saying in my stories, I think this was going to be a good learning opportunity for me as well. So let me just take a second to introduce myself for anyone joining from your end, and then I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself if that works.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, my name is Lauren Seidman. I'm birth positive on Instagram. I'm a childbirth educator and I help expecting parents, mostly first-time parents, but not only first-time parents. I help expecting parents prepare for birth and the postpartum period by providing them knowledge and information through classes and sessions so that they can make the choices that are right for them as it relates to their birth and postpartum experience. And so I invited Mushka to join me on a live today because I wanted to explore the topic of parenting before the terrible twos, let's say.
Right from the start. I like to say right from the start. You know,
like from the start.
Yeah.
So Mushka, can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yes. My name is Mushka Gopin. I just use my first name on Instagram, but this is funny. I have a master's in education. I have high school experience as a teacher and as a principal, and I never worked. Yeah, and I never worked with. I never worked in preschool. I did once. I had to do a few hours. Like I did a semester there as an assistant, but I never liked little kids, and I never liked babies, and I always worked with children. My whole life. I always worked from the age of 13 with always, and I loved teaching, but I was a counselor for years. And then I had my own baby, and I was like, oh no, now what do I? If only he could just be born 3 years old, you know, and able to walk and talk. And I thought that I actually thought babies would just be a blob because, like you said, and I think it's because I think when you come from large families, I think that for 2 reasons. If you have no experience with babies, then that's what you think. But if you also do have a lot of experience with babies, like, you know, nieces, nephews, cousins, younger siblings, and you're like, okay, I know how to change a diaper. I know that I know I've bottle fed a baby or whatever. Then you think you know what babies are like. And it's not until you have your own that you really are in it 24/7.
Right.
So,
right. It's a totally different experience. I mean, taking care of someone else's child, whether that's your sibling or your cousin or you're just babysitting, the like emotional baggage that comes with that. I mean, that doesn't exist until
You
it's
don't have it. You don't have it. Yeah.
that. Like
No.
and like the responsibility of raising a human.
Yeah, but you know what else? It's like it's easy to babysit someone else's kid. I mean, it's actually sometimes hard because you don't really know the kid. Like
Right?
when you're with your own child 24/7, you get to learn their nuances and you get to learn how to communicate with them. And so much of the fear that like, well, my baby won't know how to talk. Like your baby communicates with you in 100 million other ways, and you'll learn how to read their signals.
Right.
And then you can get to know your baby better, obviously, by knowing their signals. So
Right.
that's the other thing about when it's your own kid. It's also a
Totally.
bigger
So
responsibility.
how did you come up with the name mothering mindset, and how did you get started with like this idea of, you know, I guess bringing the whole Montessori parenting and overall, you know, parenting education to the Instagram world? Like, how did you get started with that?
Oh, on Instagram, it was by mistake. Like, it was just COVID. You know, like we were locked down. I was with my kids. Okay, actually, what happened is that I had this idea in my head for a while. Like, I thought I would do it when my second baby was born. I would start like a blog from birth. This
Okay.
was before Instagram exploded. It actually recently exploded with like Montessori and all these like respectful parenting accounts.
Yeah.
But it used to be on Facebook and on blogs.
Right.
So I'm in this like Montessori world for almost 5 years
Uh-huh.
when my first baby was a baby, and he's turning 5 soon.
Okay. We have similar
Yeah.
ages. My oldest
Yeah.
is 6. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah. And right. And then I
You
started.
knew about it from the start. Like, how did you even know about it? Like, I had no idea what Montessori was until like a Montessori school opened. Like, friends of ours opened a Montessori school in our neighborhood. Like,
Right.
that's when my kids were like already, you know, 2, 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, I always knew about the concept. I always knew the word Montessori because there was a local school here. They shut recently, but there was a school here in Crown Heights. And then I kind of leaned intuitively towards it. So like I leaned towards like respectfulness. So I was on Facebook looking for like respectful sleep training Facebook groups, and someone mentioned Montessori, you know, and that's how I found it. But I feel really lucky.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I feel lucky that I found it right at the beginning because it's never too late to change or to do anything, but there's definitely a huge element and advantage to doing it, or not even, it doesn't have to be Montessori. It's just knowing what you're doing or knowing what's going, or feeling confident or being active and intentional in your parenting, like from the beginning. And I love that you said that you teach parents postpartum, because we discussed this in our stories. It's like everyone teaches you how to like have the baby, like get it out of you, and then what? Like no one talks about what once it's separate and it's a person.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I literally was teaching a class last night, and I said, after the class was over, I give time for Q&A, and happened to be last night was the last class, so we spoke about postpartum and life with your new baby, and there was a lot of questions around sleep and feeding, and you know, there's so many physical needs that you take care of for a new baby, and that in and of itself can be really overwhelming. And this happened to me, and I've heard this from new moms that I've, you know, worked with through new moms groups and things like that, where they get so bogged down in like taking care of the physical needs and trying to like, control is a strong word, but like trying to like control your baby and trying to like get them in a schedule and like undo their day night confusion, and like, you know, there's so much. And I said to my students, like, this is just a phrase that I came up with, but it's just like, your baby's not a robot. Like, I said, you can just remember that, meaning I invite you to do the things that you want to do to like make your life better and help you get more sleep, whether that's, you know, gently encouraging your baby to like figure out night from day, and, you know, making sure you're getting enough feeds during the day, like things like that, like nothing super aggressive, but also just keep in mind that you can do all the things, but your baby's not a robot. Like, your baby is a person. And I think that's, you know, part of what you're talking about, like with the Montessori perspective. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about the Montessori philosophy and how it differs from other types of parenting. But it's like taking a step back and like having that like respect for your child is like a step, you know, their own being, like even as a babe. And like I said in my caption of the post, like I figured that out kind of like through trial and error. Like with my first, obviously I respected him as a person, but I was very bogged down in like the sleep and the feeding is very overwhelming, and it is very overwhelming, and I want to validate that. But once I had my second and third, I was just like, who are you? Like, who is this person? Like, I want to figure out what you're, who you are.
100%.
Yeah.
No, you're nailing it on the head. It's not just that your baby isn't a robot. It's that they're a whole human being from birth. And truly, truly understanding that. And I'm always kind of amazed that culturally, also Western society, but also within our especially within our frum culture, we're so baby and child centric. And I say like all we do is have kids, raise kids, and teach kids, like as a culture. But then there's so little understanding about actually children, like developmentally, psychologically.
Right. So what do you think are some of those like misconceptions about kids? Like culturally, what do we expect, and then actually what's going on inside?
I think the biggest, you know what, honestly, I mean, there's a lot, but I think it starts from birth. And I remember I was in high school and I was in all the ages, so I can talk about all the ages, but we can make the shift from birth because, like you said, you know, like, here's the thing about babies. They're really cute and they're little dolls. So we get them dressed up and we put them in the doona, and then what? And we worry so much about how they sleep. What about all the time that they're awake? Okay. Right. So a baby is born from birth with billions of neurons, all the neurons he's going to have in his life. Right. And during the first 3 years, specifically, the most important years, the years when we might think like they're too young to know, they're just babies, they're not even in school yet. So it's the first 3 years when they're biologically babies that their brains are formed and their head literally gets heavier and bigger. 95% of brain growth happens in the first 3 years. Like the time to be 95, up to 95%. Yeah. So the time to be worried, I know, but it's like the time to be worried about when to educate or when to chinuch, like when to do, or when to parent your child. It's not when they're in first grade. Wow. It's before age 3. That means it's like a responsibility, but it's also like, it's encouraging because you know why? Because it's so easy. It's so easy to do it for a baby.
Right. So what do you mean by that? Like, how is it easy? And when you say developmental and education, we're not talking about teaching your baby math problems. We're talking about
no way.
Social, emotional, like what do you
No, it's even easier. Listen, I told you, I'm lazy. I don't work hard.
You don't strike me as the lazy type. So
no. I try to work smart, not hard. Right. Okay. Like I'm not going to do something that makes my life more difficult. I'm always looking for the shortest, easiest way out that's most effective. So I'm telling you, this isn't harder. I'll tell you what is hard. It is very hard and very stressful to worry about your baby's sleep, your baby's feed. Which toy should I buy? Should I sit on the floor? I hate sitting on the floor. I'm so bored. But then how do I entertain my baby the whole day? That's hard. That's hard.
Right. Someone actually put a question in my question box, like, well, what if I don't, basically like, what if I'm not in the mood to play with my baby? Like, what if I don't want to entertain my baby? And that's something I've heard from friends and also in the, with new moms, like, they feel this like pressure to like entertain them. And I've said to friends, like, literally don't worry about it. It's fine. Like whatever, and we used to live in Manhattan in the Upper West Side, and there were tons of kids classes and baby classes and music. And I think that that's wonderful and great if as a mom, I mean, I'm curious what you think about this, but if as a mom, that's what you want to do, you know what I mean? Like
your baby doesn't need it for sure.
But your baby doesn't need it.
No. So let's simplify.
Give you a reason to get out of the house and see other people that are adults.
Be social.
And, like, give you something to do. Amazing. Please go. But like you don't need to do that, right? It's like a ton of pressure. So like, okay, so we have this cultural expectation of let's do enrichment activities like music and baby swimming and all of these things for like a baby. But like what you're saying is it's really not necessary. So like what is necessary? Like, what should we be focusing on? As I'm a new mom, let's say I'm a new mom and I have a new baby, like what should I be doing with them? Like literally, what should I be doing with them all day?
Yeah, here's what you do. And I like to make the parallel to teaching because I started off as a teacher, but I also think a lot of people have teaching experience, like culturally, right? So it's like there are two kinds of teachers. And you might start off as a teacher who prepares a lot of lessons where you're dazzling the students in front of the room and you're preparing amazing stories and you're teaching them and you're being so energetic. And that's the wrong kind of teaching. And if you do that, you get burnt out really quickly. And the effective way to teach, which people either learn on the job or let's say if you go to college, I'll teach you how, is to make the students do the work. And so if you're lecturing in front of the room the whole time, no one's learning, and what you should be doing in a perfect classroom. And I've observed as part of my master's program, we toured some of the most innovative schools like Jewish schools in the city, like in the tri-state area. In California, we traveled there. So I've toured the most innovative schools, and an effective, good teacher is basically, it looks like she's doing nothing. She's either sitting at her desk or really she's rotating around the room, but she's not lecturing. It's the kids doing the work. And that takes so much intentional effort beforehand and so much prep beforehand. But then during the lesson, she could, in theory, sit back at her desk or rotate the room and look at the students, but they're the ones working. And it's basically the same thing with parenting. We are, instead of like constantly entertaining your child and dancing in front of them and singing with them and playing with them and like doing and being on for them the whole time, what you have to do is take a step back, and you have to, just like a teacher would prepare her lesson beforehand, right? And like the students are going to learn in peers, so the worksheets are ready. They're going to do a project, so the speakers are ready. You prepare the environment beforehand, and then it's a whole different shift. And it's Montessori. It's similar to Rise of compatible philosophy, where you can prepare the environment beforehand. So and there's different ways to do it, but the point of it is that the baby's mind, which subconsciously absorbs everything like a sponge, will just take it in. So if you work really hard to make everything baby safe and baby proof and whatever, and whatever, I mean, there's different elements of what makes a prepared environment. You could really and literally sit on the couch and put your baby down and let your baby play by themselves. And when your baby plays, your baby does all the learning. So it's easier. It's simpler, you know?
So you're like flipping it on, you're like flipping it on its head, basically.
It's a mind shift, because we think that we have to be like dancing, like puppet, like, I don't know, entertaining.
I don't know, right? I'm not sure what people think what we as moms think we need to be doing.
It's either that, or it's like, here's the thing. I find that it's either that, like I have to play with my baby, whatever, or it's the opposite. And it's like, well, my baby's a blob. It doesn't matter anyways. It's okay if I stick him in the Juna for hours at a time. It's okay if he's like bored, like it's okay. He's a baby anyway.
There's like two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. But they both come from not understanding the child's amazing abilities. Because if you understood them, you take advantage of them, you know?
Right. So in terms of like learning them, like learning and developing on their own. So you mentioned about like buying baby toys or not. I have some students that are like really creative, and they made their own toys, which I think is amazing. I'm sure you've done that. I'm not at that point in my life, but like there are toys that are, let's say, marketed as like Montessori toys or like baby development toys. Like how does someone like tell the difference between what's really like a good investment? Like what sort of like criteria should you be using when you're thinking about, like, let's say, okay, someone says, I want to prepare my environment now for my baby, for my 1, 2 month old, 3 month old, to do tummy time or like be on the mat by themselves. Like, so what's like some of the criteria that you should be like looking for to like figure it out?
It's a good question. It's a long question. I happen to be super into toys, and that's because I want the toys to work for me, like to do the work for me, so I don't have to do, like I want my kids to be busy with toys, not busy playing with me. And that's because I just don't like it. I just don't like to sit down and play with them, and play for them. Beginning, it's fine to play with your child, but are you playing for them? And a lot of times, like, that's what people end up doing, and all they need is for you to sit down and keep them company. I mean, you don't have to be actual.
Like, I have a almost 2-year-old now, and she can play on her own, but like if she wants me to come play with her, it's so cute. Like she comes and gets me, and she like sticks out her little hands, and she goes like this, and she'll like,
but she doesn't. Like, she just wants your company, though.
She wants my company. She wants me to hang out with her. Like she'll show me, like, sit here, know, and like she, I'm like, sorry, where's your baby? And she gets her baby, and then she shows me what she wants me to do.
She doesn't need you to say like, okay, now you
child directed. It's like coming from the child to say like, here, mommy, this is what I want your help with, instead of me needs to be like, here's a baby, here's another baby, like,
and that's also exhausting. And that's also
a place for that, like, meaning entertaining taking kids for entertainment. I don't know, a puppet show or like music class. Like,
if you like
what do you think of that?
I think if you like it, I think if you genuinely like it, I don't, but there are lots of like Pinteresty moms that like love doing these, like make your own Play-Doh and whatever. If you like doing it, then you will have fun doing it. And our kids don't need us to play with them. They just need our quality and connection and presence. And that's why I'm saying if you like doing it, you'll have a lot of fun doing it. And if you don't like doing it, you're not helping anybody, you know? So that's why you're better off, like, just like your kid can make the puzzle on his own, just sit next to him, you know?
Yeah.
Unless you enjoy that. But I'll just address the toy specifically because you want to know for babies.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I talk so much about this, and I go. It's funny because in my upcoming course, like I'm planning a course for new mothers, and I do a whole section just on toys because I know it's such a big question for mothers. Yeah, and the answer is that baby first develops his eye vision. So in the first 3 months, you're looking at black and white images or other black and white toys. And I have on my site black and white Jewish cards, like contrast cards became really popular.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So I have Jewish cards. It's like a free download. Because like if your baby is gonna look at anything, why not let it be something Jewish? Their mind takes in so much, like subconsciously, right? And then after their eyes develop, their hands develop. And so you're looking for toys that help their hands do different things. Like first they bat, and then they rake with their hand, you know, whatever. I mean, it's a lot. I could go into depth, but it's a lot. But you're always looking for something that is keeping them engaged. And so a toy that does nothing means that the baby has to do something with it.
Okay,
so if
stop there for a second, hold on.
Yeah.
A toy that does nothing is a toy that the baby.
A passive toy. You want passive toys. You want passive toys because I'm like seeing if there's any baby toy next to me here. I'm sitting amongst a little mess of toys. But for example, I mean, this is a class. These are just balls. Balls don't do anything. They don't light up. They don't flash. There's no buttons. They don't they don't dance for you, you know?
Right.
And so you have to roll it, push it, bang it, feel it, something, you know?
You have to explore. The baby
you have to do something with it. Yeah. Okay. So you always, and that's why wooden toys are popular. It's not just because they're wooden. It's also because they're wooden and they're eco-friendly and blah, blah, whatever. But, it's really because the materials are real. So you don't get to see, no, it's because plastic feels the same, but wood has, even the wood I have many different brands and companies. Every brand and company, it feels different. The weight of it is different. The texture is different. So it's a real experience, you know, like for it to be a wood toy. But it's also because wood toys can't light up by definition.
Right.
So it's like if your toy is muktzah, don't buy it. You shouldn't have muktzah toys.
Right.
You know, I don't have any muktzah
toys. I was thinking that, like, okay, that means no muktzah toys. I don't make the life easier for someone who's Shomer Shabbos.
Yeah, I mean, I only have musical instruments. Like musical instruments and that's it. Everything else is. It doesn't have to be, or you could just take out the batteries if you do own something. You know.
Right.
Also,
so like toys that invite the baby to explore. So 0 to 3 months, they're developing their eyes, black and white cards and things like that. Then they develop their hands, so things that invite them to explore. So you mentioned balls,
grasping rings, things like textured, or like, for example, or things that serve multiple purposes. So for example, the O ball. First, like your hands you can hang it from a baby gym and you can swat it with your hands so it makes a noise because there's bells in it. You can stick your hands into it. It becomes a rolling ball when the baby's crawling. Okay. So that lasts a good few months and it's like a $5 toy. And guess what? It's not wood. It's not wood, but it's still a toy that baby has to manipulate. So it's still about it.
Wow. So interesting. And then as the child gets older, like we get into, I want to talk a little bit about the, I specifically remember when my youngest now hit 11 months and she got so active.
Yeah.
And I remember being on like a Zoom call and like trying to have her on my lap and it was over. I was like, okay, these days are over. She's too active now. So once a baby starts hitting that 1 month and 1 year old and over stage 1 to 2, like that is a massive year of development. So how might that change or does it change your approach to parenting? And then also what sorts of skills are they developing? And then what toys might be appropriate?
Too many questions.
Sorry, there's a lot of questions. Okay.
No. I have to tell you, you sent me an email with questions and I was reading and they were, they were great. And I was reading it and I was laughing. I was like, Lauren, I have a 6-week course planned for this. I can't talk about this in an hour.
I understand.
But we'll talk to Monday. It's fine. No.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me try to remember all your questions in order. First of all, I find that sooner than 12 months they really change. So at about the 6 month mark, most
Yeah,
babies start to crawl. And then, I mean, on average, whatever, could be
right,
earlier, could be
right,
later. And then once they crawl, they like get into things, but then
right,
they start to like stand up or cruise, and they might be
right.
standing for a bunch of months before they end up walking. But
Walking,
at
right.
around 9 or 10 months, when they okay, let's start with something really fun called object permanence.
Okay.
Object permanence is this oh, I should have brought all my toys next to me to play with to show you. Um,
You have like a video on your page with this where he puts the ball in the box.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know,
that's
but I
good.
could pull it out and show it to you. But
Yeah.
at around seven, the earliest is 7 months, but like 7, 8, by 9 months, it's fully there. It's this
Okay.
concept that things like that go out of view, they don't disappear, they come back. So like they'll start like throwing food off their high chair and turn to look at it, or they'll cry when you leave the room, or you'll
Yeah.
put your
Wait, can we
phone.
just pause on that point for one
Yeah,
second? So with the like, and I think this is just something that goes with the point around cultural expectations, and then this approach of just taking a step back, observing your child and respecting them as a person, where like you just mentioned a specific example, like baby throwing food off the high chair. So I've
yeah,
been in like WhatsApp groups and chats where people like with it's their first baby and they're posting like, my kid is throwing food off the high chair. They're infuriated. By the way, this was
yeah,
also me.
yeah.
It's
What do I
really
do?
frustrating. It makes a huge mess.
Yeah,
And I'm taking the general
yeah,
I think people's initial response, myself included, okay,
yeah.
is to go the discipline route. Don't do that.
100%, a hundred
That's
percent.
not allowed.
Yeah.
So, like, how might you approach it then from like, I know we're getting a lot off track, but like, how might you approach it then from the approach you're saying, like a more respectful approach, more Montessori approach, rye approach, whatever you want to call it? Would you go that discipline route, or would that response look different, understanding this object permanence concept, knowing it's like maybe developmental, like how might that change?
The whole problem with discipline in general at any age, but especially when it comes to babies, because it's a little more obvious when it comes to babies, is that discipline. First of all, the word discipline means to teach. It's like disciple. It means to teach.
Right, of
So if
course.
you're punishing or timeouting or sticker charting or shaming, you're not teaching. That's not the definition of teaching. That's not how you teach someone,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to learn. And then discipline becomes really behavioral. You're trying to teach them a behavior. And it's like, are they developmentally ready? Are they developmentally capable? Are they in the moment capable? Are they like, what's going on? And so seriously, just the missing piece here is an understanding of development. That's it. Whether that's psychologically, physically, emotionally, like we expect, we just expect things that aren't appropriate.
Right.
Like babies are supposed to throw food off their high chair. And the thing is, if you just knew that, life would be so much easier. You wouldn't stress out about it. You wouldn't get mad about it. You would be like, okay, my baby's in a food throwing stage. 2 options. Let them throw food, or remove the opportunity for throwing food because I just don't want to clean it up. And that's valid,
Right. And that's like that prepared environment also. Like,
yeah. So then you don't put them in the high
don't
chair.
put tons of food on your kid's plate.
Don't put tons of food. Yeah.
So they throw 2 pieces and it doesn't ruin your day,
Yes. Or maybe you give them a toy that they're able to throw over, so it's not food.
Right.
Or you don't put them in the high chair and you put them on your lap. You put them on a small little table. Like you can work with their needs, and then it's more fun for everyone.
It's so interesting. No, it's so true. Yeah, I think that it's it's more fun. It honestly is more fun. Like it's more
fun.
It's more relaxed. Like you're just more relaxed. I think what you're saying is they're in a food throwing stage, and I've said this, and I know that this is like this concept is thrown around like with moms and everything, but like this too shall pass, or like this is just the phase. And what you're saying triggered that for me, but in like almost like a deeper way. Like, yes, this is gonna pass, but like you don't just have to like wait to get to the other side of that.
I think the opposite.
You can like actually like take
advantage.
Take advantage of that.
Take advantage. Here's another thing. And by the way, when babies are older, because you wanted to talk about toddlers a little, when they hit toddler age, but you'll see it after age 1, and you'll see it up to age 5 or even age 6. They start getting into these things called schemas, which is stages or phases of being obsessed with particular activities. So you're going to have a 2-year-old who throws obsessively, a 2-year-old who dumps obsessively, a 2-year-old who schleps things around the house and carries, and it's so annoying. It's really difficult. It's hard unless you understand that they're in a sensitive learning window. And you actually don't want this phase to just pass. You want to take full advantage because their brain is doing something really important. So again, the time to worry about the education or the chinuch or the, it's not when they're 6 years old in first grade. It's when they're 2 and they're dumping everything, and it's really, really hard, and it makes your house a mess, but you can understand that dumping is an important skill for them right now. Let me create dumping, and it comes back to kind of preparing the environment for this. Let me create dumping opportunities that doesn't drive me crazy and satisfies their need, because I want them to learn. So and then you can understand, everything just, it all ties together. When we respect them as whole people, we can understand that they're doing something important, whether we understand it or not. We can respect their abilities. We can respect their need for it.
Right. And they're not doing it, I think, especially toddlers. And I really don't like, I'm sure you don't like this term either, like terrible twos. Like, I really don't like that term. I think it's so mean. First of all, I think
I love toddlers.
Absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's the cutest thing ever. And also, like, it's so mean. Like, don't call me being terrible. But separately from, like, on a more serious note, it's like, I lost my train of thought. Like, they're getting into stuff and they're like making trouble, but they don't think of it as making trouble.
You know what?
It's their process, right?
They're not making trouble. Here's what happens. No, here's what happens. Yeah, but here's what happens. A baby for the first 12 months is mostly immobile. Then they learn how to crawl. And at the same time, they get full control of their hand. And so all the toys up until 13 or 14 months old, were like at 13 or 14 months, the last thing they can do is the pincer grasp very finely. And after they have full control of their hand and full control of their body, because they're walking, and at 14 months, earlier or later, but at around 14 or 15 months, a baby can actually walk holding 2 things in his hand, like holding something with 2 hands, like a plate. He can walk. And all of a sudden, the world is open. I can walk. I can hold things. Oh my God, like, it's a whole new world. Let me go into it and explore it. And this is exactly the time when parents tend to say, shut it down, terrible twos, stop. And it's exactly opposite to what they need. They need to explore. They need to become part of the household. They need to pull out your laundry and get into your dishes and open your cabinets and spill everything. That is what they have to do right now. And we can, when we understand that, we can prepare the environment accordingly. We can prepare ourselves accordingly,
Can you give some practical examples of how you can channel those desires to explore, but in like a way that's like maybe more productive and less destructive? Like, for one thing that I just thought, it was like, my daughter like loves pulling things out. She helps me empty the dishwasher. She thinks it's the most fun thing ever. Can you give like some examples? I'm sure you have a million more examples. Can you give some examples of how someone could actually like channel that child's energy productively? So it's happy for everyone.
Well, Montessori calls this practical life because it's real life. And it's really interesting because the curriculum in a Montessori classroom, age 3 to 6, it's a mixed classroom, 3 to 6, is practical life. All they're doing is what can be found, in your home. And so the best thing to do is to just invite them into I know it's going to sound general and vague, but it's just the truth. Just invite them into whatever you're doing, because it will look different. It will look different if you live in an apartment and don't have a dishwasher, but you do have a washing machine that they can access, So it's like, just help me put things in, help me take things out, help me help cook or bake with me. So here's a prepared cup, you pour it into the bowl, you mix it. And it also takes a lot of, but it also takes a lot of like, my three prongs that I teach are attachment. So the first thing we start with is an approach of attaching to the child and love and connection, and then development, because you have to know what's going on. And then the third thing is consciousness. We're like, I call it the Avita of parenting. This is patience. This is, not losing it, like, the triggers. This is the hard part of parenting, but it's those 3 things together that's like my triangle of like, everything has to work together. And so it's hard. It's hard when you just want to get food on the table, and it's hard when you just want to finish something and the kid is in your way, but it's a longer, shorter way. So
any practical suggestions for that?
My best practical suggestion, and I always say this all the time, it's to prepare the environment. I know I said like 6 times so far, but I'll tell you why. I've always lived in, I don't live in a huge mansion. I've always lived in small Brooklyn apartments. So I get what it means to have no space. And you can still make any space child friendly. It's not the same thing as baby proofing it. In baby proofing, you close everything up.
Right.
In child proofing or prepared environment, you open everything up. And so what you do is, let's say in the kitchen, you put in the bottom cabinets pots and pans that are safe, and you take away bags of flour that are kept in the bottom cabinets.
Right.
And then while you're in the kitchen, you can let your child open all the cupboards. They can take everything out, and it will take you, they'll play for 20 minutes. They're involved with you. They're near you. And then it will take you 2 minutes to put it all back. And this is it's a different mindset, because same thing in the living room. In the living room, if you baby proof it, what you do is you close the outlets. If you make the environment a yes space where like you never have to say the word no, it's like, yes, you can explore, yes, you can do this. Then what you do is you get rid of the lamp with the cord, you get rid of the coffee table with the glass corners, and you just make it a space where baby is free. They're free to crawl, they're free to explore, there's nothing to slop down. And this is hard, right? It's like that teacher who has to prepare a lot before the lesson, but then can sit back. And I want to say that there have been many, many mornings when I'm supposed to wake up with the kids and I don't, I stay in bed, and I know that they're safe. They can explore my whole house, I don't have to be scared the baby is gonna whatever, chase after the baby can do whatever he wants,
Wow.
So it's harder, but it's behind the scenes upfront work, and it will look different for your space, but it's this concept that you can like apply to your own space. Like, how can I make my child comfortable and safe in this space? So make it a space it's called a yes space.
Okay. And can you, if you have the space to do it, can you make certain spaces yes spaces and certain spaces no kid spaces? Or is that like a big no-no?
Yeah, well, it's like
you want to have a room where you can have like adults and you want to have a coffee table like that.
Yeah, that's fine. No, here's the difference. Here's the difference. Okay, think about those baby gates or those baby, like, like those baby cages.
Yes.
Right? So what you might do, what they're marketed for, is that you put the baby inside the cage with toys, and you say, like, you stay here, and then life happens in the house around the cage. Let's flip it. Let's take baby out of the cage.
Fine. We did that with my first. It was not successful. Go ahead.
Right. So let's take baby out of the cage and let's put the cage around the computer. So, right, around the desk.
Oh, interesting.
For example. Okay. So baby can crawl around the whole living room, but inside the cage is your computer, for example. Or like those baby gates, like the ones that lock off the stairs, right? You can put the baby gate and close off your dining room or your living room or your adult room, right? But that's keeping baby into a different space, right? So
meaning you're not enclosing baby in their space and like excluding them from like regular life. You're allowing them to be part of regular life in a way that's safe and appropriate for
right. And if you I mean, I don't have a huge house, meaning if you have a huge house, you want a formal room. But my personal opinion is that if you have a home of babies and little kids, you kind of have no business having a coffee table with glass and a formal table.
Yeah.
Like, save it for when the kids are older, but then you're going to have grandkids.
I hear you. It's just on my mind personally right now. We're like figuring out our housing situation. So I'm like, I can't wait to like be able to decorate a house. We've had apartments also for years and years.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I have 3 little kids. Like, this is not happening.
It's not happening. But you know what? You're going to be more relaxed. If you don't have to worry about
100%. It. Someone just posted a question. How does it work with multiple children? For example, older kids want to play with Legos. Yes, we have millions of Legos. I totally relate to this question. And it's dangerous for the baby. Their baby wants to put things in their mouth. It's a great question because, the older child deserves to have their toys, but the baby also can't be around that stuff because it's dangerous. So what do you do?
We're going through this right now. We are part of it is like waiting for baby to grow up a little bit. And then like a lot of things just become safer when they're past the mouthing stage. But it's the older children also obviously deserve to have their own space. And so there's a few solutions. One of them is that there are toys that come out only when baby is napping, except if your kid is in school the whole day, and then like that doesn't work because baby naps while they're in school. And the other thing is just to make things not accessible to the baby. And so like we just started putting toys up on top of like you could play with it on top of your bunk bed. Or you can play with it up on the shelf, like stand and play with it on the shelf. And the other thing is that it's a great opportunity to foster sibling relationships. Like I find myself telling my son who's 5, we have to take care of our baby and we have to be safe for him and whatever. He really wants to play with your toys. He loves you. He loves playing with your toys. He wants to do everything you're doing. but and you have to do it like out of his reach. And I'm just pointing that out because it can cause a lot of resentment on the older child's part. Like, why can't, like, it's not fair. Why can't I?
I have my
Baby
toys,
is ruining
my
my
baby's
toys.
around, so I can't.
Right. But you have to flip it and you have to say, like, no, baby loves you. Baby wants to do, you're so cool, I'm not going to let him get into your little toy. So we have to like keep your little toy safe or whatever. We have to make sure the older child doesn't get resentful of it. And the answer is that it's a hard solution and it will depend on your space. Like, what space do you have the baby can't access, but the older kid can? And then work from there.
Figuring out what works for you. Okay, so there's some questions coming in. Let's open it up to questions.
Yeah.
And also you can put questions in the comments if you'd like, and you can also, there's a question box at the bottom, so you can also put questions there. Okay, advice for helping toddlers be safer and more gentle to help take care of a new baby. My 21-month-old is obsessed with helping, but he's very aggressive.
Yeah, this is so common.
I feel that, yeah.
It's so common. It's because toddlers, like, they're like big puppies. Like, they don't know their strength, so they don't realize that they're not being gentle. And so show the toddler what you can do. Like, you can tickle her little toes. You can hold her little hands. And that's basically it. You can be my special helper, and you can bring me a diaper. You can bring me her clothing. You can help me put on her socks, you can also demonstrate gentle, which is a little abstract, but it's like this is a gentle touch. And you hold their hand and you say, feel how gentle we're touching her little toes. This is gentle, this is gentle, this is gentle. Because otherwise you don't say, no, don't touch, no, don't, no. Right. Because you do want them to love their little baby.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of a hard balance. But the good news is they're both going to grow up pretty soon. So the baby gets a little older, the toddler gets a little older, and you're not stuck in that scary newborn stage for so long. It feels like you will be, but you really won't be.
I can still see my son going up to my daughter. Well, we had a rock and play at the time before they were recalled, but he went up to the rock and play and like aggressively, rocking it. He was also 21 months old, so I can still picture this in my head, and I totally get what this person is asking. It's really hard because 21 months is also really young.
It's hard.
But like you're saying, they do understand. So we used to say, okay, so, like, do it gently. And then when he would do it like gently, it was like, that's perfect. Like, yeah, you're whatever. You're doing such a good job. But
just they need a little bit of gentle guidance,
It's definitely a hard age gap because they want to be involved.
But
the baby's not a toy, and you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there. Yeah.
Is there anything? I'll wait for some more questions to come in. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to? I mean, there's a million things that are coming into my mind, but we're going to have to just table those. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that we didn't cover today?
I mean, I can talk about anything, so it really it just depends like what you want to hear, what the audience wants to hear, because I can take anything in any further direction.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll ask you one other question, which is I know on your account you had one particular video, like a reel that got tons and tons and tons of views, and I think it's the one where your son's falling. He fell.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you fell.
Yeah.
So if anyone's watching, you should go to Mushka's page, Mothering Mindset, and check out the video. But basically, what happens is your son falls, and instead of running over and being like, "Oh my gosh, baby, are you okay?" You're just like, "Oh, you fell," and just describing the situation. So can you and I totally understand where you're coming from, but I could see some people being like, "Oh my gosh, that mother not care," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So can you explain sort of where that comes from and how that might play out for, I don't know, a newborn or a young baby? Your son in that video is pretty young, so where's that coming from?
I'm laughing because it's right now it's at 5.5 million views. And I think it went viral. I don't know. I have no idea what made it go viral, but it's the comments are strictly divided between I'm an early childhood educator, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a teacher, 100%, I'm a psychologist. You got this? And oh my God, you're a terrible mother and a terrible human being. It's the internet. It's the internet. But yeah, the concept is it's a pretty simple concept. It's that when something happens to our child of any age, they're not sure what just happened to them. And especially if it's a physical fall, and especially if they're when they're younger, when they're a baby. But even there's a noise and it's an ambulance coming down the street. You freak out, something, you're checking your phone and you, oh my God, something happens. They're not sure how to respond. And so they look to you They look at you and they're going to copy your response because they need help making sense of the situation. And when you give them words and you connect like the sensations in their body to just words, basically your choice is to teach them how to freak out, or teach them how to integrate and teach them how to respond, and it helps them integrate their own experiences. So for example, something that we can do is like the child fell, okay? He fell, he got hurt, he's bleeding, he got a Band-Aid. And you feel bad that he's crying, and so you say, I'll give you a lolly, I'll give you a treat, let me read a book, whatever.
Like distract them.
Distract them, right?
Okay.
Or something big happens, like you're out of the house a lot, you're in the hospital, something, you're going back, you're not really home, you're going back and forth to the hospital, and you kind of never like tell the story to your kid. They don't know what happened. They're just left with the emotions. They're left with this, I fell, I hurt, I'm bleeding, I'm scared. They're left with like, where's mommy? What's going on? Why is there a new babysitter every single day? They don't know that you're with the baby in the NICU, And what you do when you give them words is you say like, here's how you might have been feeling. Like, were you feeling scared, lost, lonely, frustrated, angry, surprised, upset? No one is ever too young for those words, even a baby. Because when the baby is playing on the floor and it's a newborn and the ambulance passes and he turns his head a little and you say, oh, you heard the ambulance, that was a loud noise, you're training yourself. You're really training yourself. So no one's ever too young for this. But what happens when the child gets older, and in that video, my son is 8 months old, and he falls, and I'm like, oh, you fell. Right. He was standing by the chair. He was trying to stand, so he stood up on this little IKEA chair, and then he fell, and the chair came down with him, so he tripped over the chair. So he was. That's what it's like. Oh, you fell. You tripped over the chair. Okay, you fell, and then he crawls away. Like that, he doesn't cry. He doesn't, Wow. And everyone in the video and the comments are like, but give him a hug, give him a kiss. And here's the thing: I'm happy to give him a hug and a kiss. But does he need it? Does he need it?
So,
meaning if he's okay and he's crawling away and I say, no, I'll give you a hug and a kiss, then he's like, oh, I guess I really hurt myself more badly. Like mommy thinks I need a hug and a kiss, So it's not about withholding love. It's just about not being a drama queen about it.
Yeah. Wow. No, I think it's so empowering. I think as a parent and also as a child, like you're sort of helping them differentiate between, okay, this was like not such a big if he wasn't upset, his body is telling him, okay, this wasn't such a big deal. And so you're just sort of reflecting that.
Yeah, it's reflecting.
If you was really hurt and upset, then you would have probably reacted differently,
Yeah, you would hear it in my tone also, meaning my kids sometimes fall and they sometimes cry. And then I'm like, oh my God, you fell. Oh my God, I can't, we didn't want that to happen. But here's the thing. There was like a third of the comments and they're like, oh yes, just teach your child to brush it off. And that's not what I'm doing. Right. I'm not saying get up, laugh, shake your hands, clap your hands.
It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Right. You did fall. You fell. Do you feel okay? Okay, let's move on.
You're sort of like taking that second of like, okay, seeing how they responded to it instead of putting your response
exactly
on them.
Exactly. Instead of projecting.
Cool.
Right.
Wow.
You got it.
I love it. Kate, you want to be my personal mentor? We have another question. We have 1 million toys and my son just isn't interested in 95% of them. Is it worth trying to push him to use them or just let him explore over time? I love this question because we also have a lot of toys and it's very overwhelming for me and for my kids too. So what do? You have tons of toys. And maybe the parent didn't buy them, by the way. Maybe they're from generous grandparents or family. And, thank God we're very grateful for people that want to give our family gifts. And it is. So what do you do? Like if this person is saying their kid doesn't want to play with it, what do you do with that?
Did she say how old the kid is?
And I know who this person is. And I think her kids are she's like a toddler. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a few different answers. Number one, the easiest answer is to limit the amount of toys in the environment. You just don't have more than 6 at a time or 8 at a time. If it's overwhelming for you, it's overwhelming for your kid. But then what you do is what I do is like a toy rotation. So I just have all the toys in the closet. And then I keep taking out new toys. They're not old.
How often do you do
they're not new, they're old.
Like when you would do a toy rotation, I've heard of this before and I've personally never been so successful at implementing it. How often is that rotation supposed to happen? like in terms of amount of time?
It's not amount of time, it's child's interest. And so, like, for example, on Shabbos morning, I'll take out a new toy so they could, like, I could sleep in on Shabbos morning because there's something new. I know, pro tip, right? I know. And, but then it depends on, like, their interests or their abilities. And so I just try to change it up based on observing them. But the number one thing you can do, like, right now is just take away half the toys that are there. And the other thing is that there's nothing. Here's the other thing. As adults, we buy toys because we feel like it might make us good parents. We're marketed into it. We want to keep our kids busy. We think our kids need it for their development. I mean, this is purely decor. Like, spoiler alert, it's not really worth the money. But that was for me. But your kid, like, if your kid doesn't need, like, if your kid's not playing with the toys, then he doesn't need it. So either he's not playing with the toy because he's overwhelmed. He could be playing with it because he doesn't actually know how to do it. Like, if it's like a puzzle or a stacker or some kind of skill game like that, you never actually showed him how to do it. Or he's not interested in that right now. It's a stacking toy, but he's currently into dumping. So he's not going to orderly stack. He just wants to dump, So you have to like observe. So this comes down to like observe the child and then adjust or prepare the environment accordingly. Like, what is he interested in? What does he want to do? You can't really force him to play with a toy. It doesn't serve any purpose to him. Like, kids don't like pass the time. They're not bored. They're not like trying to like pass the time. Like, if the toy doesn't serve their interest or their skill set or enhance their development right now, they're just not going to do it.
Right. So if your child gets a new toy and you say, oh, here, like, let's look at this together. What should you do? Should you show them how to use it? Should you just like put it in front of them and let them figure it out? Like, what's the...
Okay, if it's like an open-ended toy is like blocks, cars, dolls, like there's no way to play with them, and then you give it to them and you let them figure it out. But if it's a skill toy, like it's a Peggy, like if it's, I call those like therapy toys. Like if your physical therapist would bring them, those are like all the kind of Montessori toys, like they're puzzles and they're things like Love Every has all those kinds of things. So I demonstrate them to the child. Montessori is called like a lesson, like in the classroom, it's called like a lesson where you give a lesson to the child. But that's because that's because there's only one way to do it. Like there's only one way to stack it. You either get it right or you get it wrong. So you're demonstrating that. You don't have to demonstrate with them how to build blocks. And you shouldn't. They should discover the blocks on their own because in doing so, that's the learning for them.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah. Play is like it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It really is a whole thing. Are there any like books or podcasts or like other resources that you would recommend? Like if someone, watched this live and they're like, wow, that sounds really cool. I want to like read more about it or listen more about it. Like are there any resources that you would recommend?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about a lot of different things. So we talked about a little about babies and a little bit about toddlers. In general for babies, there's no like Montessori for babies. It's called RIE, R-I-E. And so like Magda Gerber, who founded RIE, or the Montessori Baby, that's a book. That's what I would suggest you look at for babies. And then for toddlers, there's a great book called The Montessori Toddler. I would start there. If you have a baby, I would start with like Magda Gerber's book. But I also want to say, I know I've mentioned this a few times, but I just want to say because it's like I'm coming out with a course and I have a free class next week. No, thank you. No, I'll tell you why I want to share it because people keep asking the same questions and it's like, I mean, I don't know how long this live was because I can't see my clock on my phone.
Or almost at an hour.
So. Yeah, so it's like there's so much, and it's not
like branches off.
Right. There's so much to talk about, and it's not like fully organized. You know what I mean?
And so 100% understand. Yeah.
Right. And so my course is just fully organized. It's like lessons. It's like, it's in order and it gives you the full picture. And it's like, instead of having to figure it out yourself or read, I mean, I could tell you 100 books. I read 100 books. I could tell you which 100 books to read, then you have to go read them. So
you've taken everything and put it into an
right.
Of course,
so that's why I did it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you'll indulge me to just plug it for a minute. No. So I have information for that on my site. It's going to be, it's going to open at the end of January, beginning of February. And next week I'm doing a live class. It's called, it's a free class. It'll be a little bit more structured than this because I'm going to go like it's going to be called 3 Secrets to Mastering the First Year.
Oh, cool.
I think that's what I called it. Right. So it's going to just be a little bit more, more organized, like 3 takeaways that you can take from there. I think that I just feel like this piece, I know we discussed it over our stories, but I feel like this is the piece that's missing. It's missing for so many people. Like, you don't have to figure it out on your own. You could, but you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't spend the first year or two of your first baby, your second, whatever it is. You shouldn't feel like, because it's such a hard, I was there for a little bit before I like quickly, thank God, I feel like I'm so lucky I learned this early enough, but
Right.
everyone has a baby. Everyone has a baby. Everyone walks down the street looking great with their baby. We could talk about postpartum issues, right? I'm sure it's not that perfect. But then it's like, and then what? And now what do I do? Then you're home in your apartment with your baby, right? And everyone talks about sleep and everyone talks about feeding, but no one talks about like everything else.
A person, like you're developing, you're responsible for a person. And
A person.
I think
like, what do I do
lot
with
of
him
that,
now?
like a lot of the like, I think it's hard for people to articulate, myself included, but I think a lot of that like pressure that moms feel and like overwhelm, it's yes, you're exhausted, yes, you're tired, yes, you're trying to figure out feeding and sleeping, but also now you feel this like responsibility of caring for a person, like emotional and social well-being, whether you can like articulate that or not. I think that's a big part of it. So
I would
saying,
think
like,
so. Yeah.
you
And it's also,
you don't have to figure it out like by trial and
yeah.
error. Like in my own experience, like I mentioned in the beginning, we had our son and I was very overwhelmed with all of like physical needs. And I think part of it was like, well, what direction am I going? And like, how am I raising this child? And obviously, like, I think I'm a good mom. Like, I think I was doing a pretty good job, but I didn't know this information then. And I think I learned it. I figured it out. My kids ended up going to a Montessori school for a little while, and I educated myself about more of this approach. But I would have been nice to like not have had to like do trial and error, which is like what you're saying.
I
And like
agree with
that's why I
that.
think it's amazing that you're organize it into a class. Like you don't have to figure it out from scratch. You don't have to figure it out through trial and error. And also, like, just to take it on a next level, like you said in the beginning, the first 0 to 3 years are such an important period of time, and so it's really an opportunity to make the most of it. And if you have the tools to do it from early on, then you're only benefiting yourself and your child and your relationship. Like,
Yep. Yeah, but not in a stressful way. But I
Right.
want to come back. I think we're going to wrap up here. But I just want to come back to your original question because we veered off of it. And it was like, I know you wanted to talk about like what parenting styles and how do you relate to your child. It's not a blob. But here's the thing, like if you Google what are parenting styles, I mean, there's psychology about this. If you took a psych class, then there's like authoritarian, permissive, neglectful, authoritative. Everyone thinks they're going to be authoritative. That's a perfect one. Everyone thinks that's going to be me. But then meaning it doesn't matter what the names are. It doesn't actually help you in real life. Like, what kind of parent do I want to be? That doesn't really kind of give you good information. It doesn't do anything for you. But but a question that you can ask yourself or that you can have answered is like, well, okay, there's a real person in my arms. How do I get to know him? Because parenting it's a relationship. How do I get to know him better? How can I service his needs? What do I need to be? What tools or techniques do I need to be equipped to service his needs? This is what nobody tells us. Like, and after your mother or your mother-in-law leaves, and after your sisters and your friends stop sending you suppers, and after your husband, stops his reduced work hours, when you're home yourself with that baby in your apartment, and even if you went back to work, even if you're out and about and you haven't had the babysitting, but you take him home and it's like, now what am it can feel like, now what am I supposed to do? Or it can feel like an anxiety, like how am I supposed to raise him the best way? Yeah. I mean, whatever, you can feel however you want about it. But it's just the assumption that like, okay, well, you gave birth to him, you should have all the answers. And like, no, he didn't come with a manual. So
they don't come with instructions.
They don't come with instructions.
And unless you do the education and unless you
but I feel like
learn,
unless you do it yourself, but I feel like it's a disservice. It's a disservice to our community. And I think I'm hoping to raise awareness in this area where, like, we all know and expect that you should take a Kala class before you get married. It doesn't help you for your marriage relationship, but whatever. It's, at least you took a class. You should take you should take a labor class or a postpartum class. Like, that's expected. And then the support stops. And it's really support. It's not just about raising the best child in the world. It's support for yourself. Like, this is a job that you're doing. You studied to take your driver's license. You studied to go to college. Your boss spent a few hours training you in, or weeks, or sent you to conferences. You have to be, you deserve to get some training for parenting. You know, that's what I think. Like, you deserve it. You deserve to feel confident about what you do, you know? You shouldn't have to feel like you're figuring it out.
I think it's a great analogy, like the starting a new job, because that's what it is. People don't have this pressure when you start a new job to know exactly what you're doing from day one. Like, I know when I started my first job out of college, I had like an assigned mentor and a peer mentor and training and, you know, a week of intense training, mentorship, check-ins, like all of that.
They held your hand.
They held your hand because you're learning it's a new job. You don't have those skills yet. And you also, I think with a job, like, you get better at it over time. And I think the analogy of a job for new motherhood is a really good one, because before you have kids, it can be really hard to understand what it's like, but pretty much everyone has started a new job in their life. And so if you think about it that way, like, you don't have to know what you're doing from day one. And no one expects you to, and you shouldn't expect yourself to, but you should also know that there is training available. There are mentors available. There is support available. There are ways to develop your skills. And the encouraging part is people say it gets easier, and I think that's true, but I think the other side of that coin is that you actually get better at it.
I think you get better.
You know?
And the other thing is that a lot of people feel scared to have a baby. Like, I'm not a natural mother. I don't have maternal instincts. I'm not a natural nurturer. I can't, I'm not a soft and I'm not a fuzzy, loving, kind person. No one will ever say about me that I'm nice and sweet. It's just not an attitude. I'm not nice and sweet. But you can learn, you know, you can learn. So, you can gain, those are skills, you can gain them. Maybe they're varied, but you can hone them. So there's a lot of like, I feel like there could be like fear or anxiety or worry, and like, take it away and replace it with education so that you're more empowered.
100%. Yeah, I love that.
That's my message.
Thank you so much. I think that's it's amazing. I think that's like a really good note to close on, because it's a really positive way to end off, that there is support and education and resources out there so that you can make it, you can make your new parenthood a more positive experience and enjoyable. Like we've been saying, like the whole thing, when you learn about this type of parenting and thinking of your baby as a whole person, it does. I mean, I personally experienced this. It makes it more fun. Like it is less stressful. It really, really is. Not that being a mom is easy. It's not. And it like, I call it like Nido's boot camp, like character development boot camp.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a very, so you said you're not like soft and cuddly. Like I'm not very patient. And I'm also a little bit sarcastic. Sarcasm does not work well with in particular one of my kids. So it forces you to like develop these character traits, and it's beautiful. But there are ways to like better appreciate the experience. So
you can make it fun.
Saved. Yes, the live. I mean, as long as Instagram cooperates, the live will be saved. And Mushka, I just want to thank you so much. It was really nice to like get to know you better and like hear all about this. I certainly
thank you for having me. It was great to chat with you. I love that you're aware of this as a birthing instructor, because it's not just about like giving birth to the baby. It's about then what do you do?
Totally.
Then what do you do with the baby?
Yeah, I'm for sure. I mean, there's like really, I think that we all sort of end up in these like paths because of some of our personal experience influences it. I was not doing this type of work before I had my own kids. And then once I had my first, I prepared so much for the birth, not really that much for postpartum, and then definitely not that much for parenting. Like parenting, right? Like I woke up when he was 2 and I was like, oh my gosh, like he's like a real person. Like, I had that realization much later. And I just think like, it's full circle. You can't just stop at the birth. Like it doesn't end at the birth. I think preparing for birth is super important, and I think people's birth experiences are extremely, extremely important. They are. But then, like, what do you do after?
That's just the beginning.
Yeah, that is just the beginning. And so now you have, please God, these children for life. So it's a longer journey. Okay, well, thank you so much, and thank you for everyone that joined and your questions. And have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Take care. Bye bye.